Hello, we're back again. Finally, um, we're a podcast. Yeah, so not actually been following baseball a huge amount, to be honest. The last week a week or few weeks. So what's the big news, Sam? What's been going on?
Um, the Yankees are still good. They got Encarnacion. The Braves are on a surge. The Phillies lost McCutcheon and sort of crumbled. Um, and there's not like the Cubs and Brewers and Cardinals are still close, but for the most part, it's all a bit like it's a bit quiet, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, there's a lot of the races that we thought were going to be close are not actually that close, are they?
Yeah. I
At the
mean,
moment.
the NL East and Central are potentially interesting, but Philadelphia are, as I think we perhaps said many, many
Yeah,
times, and have spent a disproportionate amount of time talking about the Phillies, are basically just not quite that good. It's not helped by like
no,
Harper's being just above league average, but like Gene Segura, shock horror, isn't the greatest contact hitter of all time. Um, I'm looking at their lineup right now. In their lineup, they've got three guys with an OPS plus above 100, and one of them's Andrew McCutchen, who's out for the year. Scott Kingery's had a breakout, which is obviously really cool. Jay Bruce has started well, but basically they're just thin.
yeah.
And the
Well,
guys,
it's their pitching as well, isn't it? I think that they've struggled with.
yeah, it ultimately it's just their roster wasn't that good. It's like it's just everything's not
Yeah,
performing like a contender would do. Obviously Nola's drop off is really hurtful. I mean, like any team struggles when you have a guy that you're relying
yeah.
to be a Cy Young
Well,
contender.
that's the thing is that all of their pitches, though, there were question marks. Really, there's Nola really hoping he'd keep up last year, but he'd only really done that for 1 year, so
Yeah,
I don't know if you could really expect that. And then basically, well, a lot of people seem to be relying on big breakouts from the other guys, which well, Zach Eflin has,
yeah,
but well, like the other guys. Nola and Pivetta have made up, cancelled that out by being
yeah. But the
this year.
the flip side of that in that race is that the Braves are they're really interesting. I mean, this is quite a leap, but of the National League teams, if you're talking about like ready to dominate the whole league, they're in the best spot, and I think it's not really that close. Um, because well, first of all, they've got the prospects who are still cheap and they've got forever, who've come up and have performed, and that's kind of stuck. They've got Freddie Freeman, who is just a stud, isn't he? Like
Yeah,
he he's like absolutely one of the top players in the game, and that's just nailed on. And then they've got this ridiculous farm of pitchers, some of which, like Mike Soroka, are coming up and dealing already. They're in an incredibly good position whether they want to make big trades this year. I don't think they will. I
no,
think
I don't think they should either because I don't know. Well, they could get a starter.
they'll go bullpen, won't they? I think if they do, they
Yeah,
might add a reliever. But if I was them, I wouldn't. Um,
give up any of the really good guys, or even the guys that are close to coming up, like Pash.
yeah, I'd be tempted to just sort of sway away from really giving up too much of the fun. And they've been cautious so far, haven't they?
Yeah,
To the point of criticism from
but
some quarters. But
almost the opposite of the Phillies actually.
yeah, so the idea with that is that the Phillies beat them this year and maybe next year, and then the Braves kind of outlast them at the top. Maybe is kind of how I saw it going.
Yeah,
But they're currently 4 games ahead of them.
but well, yeah,
McCutcheon,
basically the Phillies made win now moves, which they basically made it so this year is meant to be one of their best shots after that
yeah,
long rebuild, and they're not doing that well basically, but there's still quite a long way to go with that.
oh yeah, of course. But they got really hurt by the McCutcheon injury, which is always a shame to see him get hurt anyway, because he's just like one of the good guys in baseball, isn't he? But he was brilliant leading off for them, and he's gone.
Yeah,
for the year. That's obviously going to hurt, and again is where their lack of depth is an issue.
yeah. Well, the thing is, I think the most disappointing about the that division actually is I actually thought the Nationals and the Mets were going to be like right up there competing with the Braves and Phillies.
Yeah,
I mean, you look at their rosters and you sort of it almost doesn't make sense that they're both like below 500.
yeah, I agree. I mean, I
Really?
think so. Obviously, the famous Mets fans' pessimism and general anger at everything that their team do, I think is kind of a bit like undeserved. If you look at, like you say, you look at the team they've put out this year,
Yeah,
it shouldn't be this bad.
I know.
And the same goes for the Nationals to an extent. They've been unlucky with injuries. It's just like, I mean, like Robinson Cano's OPS is below 700. I don't think
Yeah,
anyone sensible expected that. He was a good hitter.
no, yeah. But this well, it's the worst season of his career by a long way. I suppose there's also
He was old, yeah.
and the steroids thing.
Yeah.
But but
But
yeah,
even when you,
basically he he'd basically been a consistently very good hitter for his whole career, and then this year happens to be when he drops off.
yeah, and you've got the stuff like with bullpen just being a bit of a nightmare. I mean, I wasn't massive on the Familia signing when it happened, and it has been an absolute disaster. But it's not one guy in a bullpen, is it? It's like there's got. I think whenever a bullpen, everyone in the bullpen is underperforming or is just all dysfunctional. I always wonder about like what's going on there because they snowball, don't they? When a bullpen
Yeah,
starts going wrong, you can almost feel that relievers are then panicked when they're coming into a game. And then the manager starts second guessing himself and makes weird decisions, which I know Callaway's been criticised for. And I think that's when it gets out of hand. I don't know how you pull that back. It's not often you see a team has bad bullpen midway through a season and then suddenly has good bullpen. Like I don't think that I don't think it gets fixed that easily. I think it's kind of a problem you have to nip in the bud.
yeah. Well, I mean, Edwins' results aren't actually that good, are they? I mean,
No,
compared to last year, he's
well
still
that's
striking
part
a
of the
ridiculous
issue.
amount of people out, but like, yeah,
9.7 hits per nine isn't the stuff, is it? That's just not the stuff.
no, that's just. I think sometimes, like you say, it just goes along with everything going badly in the bullpen. It's just everyone just ends up with worse numbers.
Yeah, yeah, and then even in the rotation, so I don't. If you look at the ERAs, their FIPS are actually all right, but if you look at the ERAs of Syndergaard and even Matz to an extent, like, I don't think you can put that on Van Wagenen. I don't know how you say it. I think that rotation was meant to be really good. It still looks like it should be really good, and the fact it's not being doesn't mean he constructed a terrible roster.
No, I mean, yes, yeah, it's Syndergaard and Wheeler. I mean, the fact that Jason Vargas actually has not been completely terrible is
It's quite something.
it's almost a miracle, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
But that's well, there's the Vargas at the end, having Vargas in the rotation, that seemed like that sized them
yeah.
because well, I think a lot of people basically just expected him to be completely useless because he
Well,
hasn't been good, has he, for a while?
he was for a few starts at the beginning of the year,
Yeah,
wasn't he? Like absolutely horrendous.
but that's basically the problem the Nationals had, though, isn't it? As well, is
They just got three studs,
and then picked up anyone
yeah,
pretty much.
and that just doesn't work because you still have to play those games.
Yeah,
Like you still have to play the games when you've not got a good starter out. Um, the Nationals roster is similar. I mean, like I said, they've had some injury issues, but you look at even like the numbers of their core players. It's like I don't know how they're losing this many games.
yeah, I know. There's
Um, it's a weird one with both of them. Well, I think there's a fair element of luck in it.
yeah,
Um,
sort of. Well, I mean, you get a lot of time you get like the Pythagorean win-loss thing, which for theirs is actually their Pythagorean win-loss is actually just above 500,
Yeah,
which is based on the runs you score and the runs you concede, which is sort of fair enough. But I think with both of these teams, it sort of gets a bit skewed, where it's not actually that good a stat to look at whether they've been unlucky or not, because of the back end of the rotation, where it's basically, you know, um, they're just going to lose those
yeah.
bad games, and then basically they may have some really dominant games when like Scherzer's pitching, and brings the Pythagorean win loss back up again. But you wouldn't necessarily say it's like they've been unlucky. It's just like 2/3 of the game they've got like quite a bad start of like pitching, and it's not gone well a lot of the time.
Well, they've kind of had. I know Strasbourg's numbers aren't actually that bad, but they've both had the thing where like their good guys haven't been that good either. It's not like the front three have just won you the game every week.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Patrick Corbin has not been good, has he? Well,
No.
not for the contract he got given.
No, he's been basically average.
Yeah, he's been pretty standard, and so Strasbourg. And if you construct the roster like that,
Yeah.
you're basically saying they
Well,
have to be way better than that.
Obviously, the exception is Scherzer, who's been really, really good again.
Yeah,
And
who
that links quite nicely to the talk about him getting traded or maybe getting traded.
Yeah, which I think was an interesting. I saw some national fans getting angry at Ken Rosenthal because it was one of these things where he explicitly said this isn't on. Like, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it is an option for them, and then said people have said X about this in the past. And obviously, the big thing for me is that he gets 10 and 5 rights.
Yeah, I think they should do it, to be honest. Probably because I mean, even though he is like incredibly dominant and he has been for the last few years, at the moment, it just seems like he's just going to be this dominant forever, winning Cy Youngs and stuff. He is like very nearly 35.
Yeah.
And well, generally you don't get much warning, do you?
No, it just happens.
You know, and as time goes on, it seems like it's more and more likely that he's getting to the point where he's going to just stop being really, really good soon. And especially when you imagine if they were to trade him now, they'd probably get, even with his massive contract, they'd probably get stuff back for him, wouldn't they?
Oh, they should do. And if they don't, they should pay enough of it that they would. I mean, I think the Yankees are kind of the obvious one to talk about here because of what they've got, and the money in the contract wouldn't scare them off. But like, you'd be looking at some of their higher prospects, or maybe even like Frazier, or I think possibly like Andahar,
Yeah,
that you could like ask for at least. It looks like they're not going to compete this year. I feel like they're in that dangerous bit where teams who've got big decisions to make do not want to be at the trade deadline. You really don't want to be like 5 or 6 games back because
no,
basically you're unlikely to make it, but also front offices get lured in by we could make the playoffs.
yeah. I don't know. I don't get the sense the Nationals are going to do that. But certain front offices would just trade one of their really good young guys, and weaken their like what seems like it's going to be like a really good long-term core. Like trade one of them to get some like league average veteran.
Yeah,
That's really not going to make the difference at all.
yeah, and that's they're in that. They at the moment they're just about in that no man's land. You kind of want them to fall off. I think they either have to go on a really big run here, or they need to fall off in the next like 2 or 3 weeks. Because there's Rendon as well. That kind of looms larger than Scherzer because he's a free agent. They don't really want to let him walk after letting Harper walk when they could have traded him as well.
Yeah, that would be bad, wouldn't it? I mean, I know I've heard stuff.